everyone. Welcome to the Sackhoff Show. I am your host, Katee Sackhoff. Thank you so much for being here today on this wonderful Tuesday. I appreciate you so much. I am so excited about today's guest. Before we get to that, I just want to remind you all to stick around for the HINDSIGHT episode, where we go into detail about the episode, but also talk about life in general and things that are coming up, and we get into the mail sack. Today's guest is the wonderful, most extraordinary man, Jonathan Frakes. If you don't know Jonathan, he plays Commander Riker on Star Trek: The Next Generation and all of the spinoffs, and he is such a wonderful human being. I met Jonathan on the convention circuit many years ago, and he has always just been like this warm, fuzzy, father figure. I cannot. There's so much that I love about him, and I've never really gotten to know him though. So I was so excited to sit down with him and talk to him about his life and directing and acting. And he is just wonderful, salt of the earth human being. I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. And I'm just going to get out of your way because it's wonderful. And I will see you at the HINDSIGHT. Here is my friend, Jonathan Frakes. Well, yeah, what's your heart out?
I'm on vacation in Maine.
Oh. So this second is your heart out?
Yeah, exactly. And it's raining. It's not like I can go fishing or swimming. So when you're bored with me, we'll know. We'll know when we're done. When we finish blowing smoke up each other's ass is when we'll be done.
We'll go, that's our heart out. That's our heart out. I think we've hit the heart out. My husband and I do this thing when we talk to each other. And he has done this since we first started dating, and it took everything in my power to not take it personally. We were on the phone at one point, and we were long distance for a little while. And at one point he literally it got really quiet and he went, "Okay, that's all I got. I'm done."
Oh, that's fabulous. That would freak me out.
It freaked me out so much. And then I was like, okay. And I was trying to do this relationship differently. I was like, okay,
I'm going to fuck this one up.
I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do this differently. I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to panic. And I was like, okay. And he got really quiet, and he goes, and then God bless him. He goes, well, I don't want to sit on the phone with you and get bored. That's all I have. If something else happens, I'll call you back.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, bless you and your honesty, you sweet Canadian boy.
I know. That's so healthy. It's so evolved.
So healthy. It's so healthy. Thank God. Thank God. Hi.
Hi. Doesn't it seem weird that we haven't actually worked together?
It does. I was thinking about this actually, as I was doing my research.
Oh, no. You do research?
I mean, not as much as I've gone on people's shows where the research is deep. My show is much more of just a fly on the wall.
Well, your show is much more dick jokes, is what I'm told.
It is. No, but I don't know how we've not worked together, because I realized when I was doing my research that you directed Roswell.
Yeah, and were you not there?
I feel like I got pretty far in that audition process of Roswell.
I can't fathom not hiring you instead of Heigl. Would it have been for Katee Heigl's part?
Yeah. Yeah. Katee Heigl had a much longer resume than I did in 1998 or 1999 when you guys were
I know Jason
casting.
Katims tried to keep me at bay because I was an executive producer in name only.
Oh, in name only.
Yeah, I brought him the project, and because I had a producing deal at Paramount, he was assigned to the project and then essentially took it. And the only thing I was able to actually contribute to the show was Ron Moore, who came in and helped him in season 2.
Right. Interesting. What was that like being, and because I've had that name only thing. It's frustrating.
It's horrible. One of the things they asked me to do was, because there was very bad behavior on that set, they said, could you guys, could you talk to the cast? you're an actor. I said, well, I'd be happy to. So I brought him into a room. I said, you guys, you can't come in here coked up and late and not knowing your lines. And this is not how it goes. And of course, they were all not guilty.
Of
And I
course.
suggested that, I said, you see the guy sitting over there in the corner? This is William Sadler.
Mm.
I said, why don't you just follow Sadler around for the day? Watch how he works, what he does when he gets in the makeup chair, watch how he prepares. I'm not saying you have to do everything like him, but he's a good example of how professional actors, and it was such a dicky kind of assignment, but he was the perfect example because he was so solid and such a, and then we had people who have been lifelong friends, like Colin Hanks was on that show.
Yeah.
Who was spectacular. It was a complicated show. It tried desperately to stay on the air. It was on, I think, 3 networks.
It was. God,
Yeah.
I wanted that show so bad. I'm trying to figure out where I was in 99.
I'm sure I wasn't part of that because I think it would have been Fox taking people to the network back in the day.
Yeah. So at that point in my career, I had
Oh,
done.
it was David Nutter. David Nutter was directing it. The guy who ended up doing Game of Thrones.
Right.
So it was
Right.
Nutter and Jason would make
Right.
those. Yeah.
I was just starting out in California. In 99, I probably had just come off. I did a short-lived show for Fox Family before it was ABC Family. And then in 99, that's where I was like still struggling to work, and I wanted Roswell so bad. But then right after that, I booked the Richard Dreyfuss show, like right after that. And I ended up in New York with Richard and Marcia Gay Harden and like Peter O'Toole and Eli Wallach, and just like had phenomenal teachers on that show, and learned how to show up and do my job and not be a child in that situation. Because I
suspect you were your instincts. You don't strike me as someone who is going to be a problem. Anyway,
I wasn't a problem at work. I was a problem because I was 21, 20.
Right.
I was a problem like on the weekends.
Yeah.
And it would carry into Monday morning.
Yeah, I remember. I was too.
Yeah.
Luckily, I got that out of the system before I got Star Trek.
So walk me through like how you started, because I grew up watching you on Next Gen. And
87. That was 87. I had been doing bad television since I moved to New York in the 70s, and I was on a soap there called The Doctors.
Which my mother knew you from, because my mom, the only reason she would watch Next Gen was because of basically, of Jeannie. Yeah.
Who's downstairs making yellow bean stew, which I'm looking forward to.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah, that was actually my best credit. The idea that Jeannie Francis decided to stay with me for 39 years is beyond me.
Well, what is it though about? Because obviously, I mean, as a person who's been married now for 6 years, it's not easy. It's like, no. I mean, granted, we're not up against any, craziness. We love each other tremendously, and I meet people who after like a year they're done, and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, and our marriage is better than ever. And being up here, we wake up in the morning and we're reading the New York Times and doing our Wordle and drinking our coffee and saying, don't you love this time? I said, yeah, this is the kind of the best time of day.
Yeah.
But she still works and I still work. And I think that's another key to it as well.
Is Maine your home base?
I wish to God, because all my jobs are in Toronto or Vancouver or Atlanta. Yeah. But Jeannie still is in LA, General. She's now the mayor of Port Charles, by the way. She's been on and off the show for 47 years.
I didn't realize she was still on the show.
Oh, yeah.
If you can figure out how to make the soap opera schedule work for you, it's wonderful.
It's still the hardest job in show business. So have you done a soap?
No. I when I first started acting, probably in 99, I booked one, and my manager said, you don't want to take this because I feel like something different is coming for you. And because I was so young, and he's like, you haven't even had the chance yet to book anything differently. And he was like, I feel like you should turn this down because it was a new soap opera and no one knew how long it would last. And he's like, it's not like one of the ones that's been on forever that you know it's going to stay. And so I didn't take it. And I booked Battlestar like right after that.
Thank God. Well, that was Jeannie's story. She started when she was 13 or 14 and then left because other things were cooking and then ended up, they didn't cook the way they were supposed to. So it's been a very double-edged sword, as you can imagine.
I would imagine.
Yeah. She missed high school. She missed college. It was, let's talk about Battlestar though. I saw Ron this weekend in Vegas at the Creation Con.
Oh, that's right. Did you guys have the big Star Trek convention this weekend?
Yeah. 176 guests.
Wow.
That's crazy,
wow.
right?
The fact that Creation has the money to pay that many guests to show up tells me how big it is.
Well, they charge so much. They gouge the fans.
Yep. Yeah. But, that also is a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, you don't want to make the prices so astronomical that you're making it impossible for people to come. But on the other hand, if the show wasn't lucrative for the people putting it on, it would never happen.
Exactly.
So it's like this weird thing.
That's specifically Star Trek too. That's still, our show is 37 years old, I guess. And Bill's show, he was there Sunday, is 55 years old.
That's crazy. I thought I could marry Bill when I was a kid. I didn't realize that it was in reruns. And that he was much, much older than I was. And that broke my heart. But then the next gen came out. And then I fell in love with Riker and was like, well, at least I have this backup.
That's kind of an upgrade from Kirk.
I mean, Bill is hysterical.
Don't tell Bill.
I won't tell Bill.
Isn't Bill amazing still?
It is. He's so sharp and he's so funny and
he's so curious.
He is. He really is. Every time I see him, we share some sort of little joke, and it makes me appreciate him so much.
He's an inspiration.
How was the convention this year? That many people, how many fans came?
Oh, it was packed. It was wonderful, massive. I didn't get to see all the friends that I wanted to see because I work on the new shows. I do Strange New Worlds and Discovery, which had just been canceled. I see a lot of those guys there, and I work on Lower Deck. So I'm blessed to be part of the sort of next generation of Star Trek too. So I have relationships with a lot of. So I went around and said hi to most people, but I didn't even get to see Sonequa, who was in town, or Rebecca Romaine, who I worked on 3 or 4 shows with. So it was that crowded.
Wow, that's like Dragon Con, but for Star Trek.
Have you been?
Yes.
Is it or is it not one day too long?
Always. I find that any convention that starts on a Thursday and goes to Sunday is too much for me. It's
First
too
of
much.
All, the olfactory factor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
When they come in for the photo op and your eyes start to water.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Of course you do.
It's too many people to be in a tight space for 4 days in a hot environment. It just, you know what I mean?
Do I?
The worst thing for me, it's not the worst thing. I love conventions. I have loved them since I started doing them during Battlestar. I was like 24 years old. And I remember being in a car with Richard Hatch and him being like, are you ready for this? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And sort of ending up in this world. And I absolutely love it. And it gives me this opportunity to sort of like always thank the fans, which I love. But I've learned tricks over the years to because it only happens one time too many. And then you sort of learn lessons at conventions for certain things.
This is very inside baseball, by the way.
It really is. It really is. And it's funny too, because I've had this conversation with so many people. I don't fault people for it. It's like, it's such a weird environment, like at a convention, because there's so much stimulation. There's so much adrenaline and excitement. Yeah. There's so much panic because people are concerned they're going to miss out on something, or
And people are overexcited.
they are.
People are seeing people that had a major part of their childhood or had a very positive effect on them.
Yeah.
So they're amped up and they behave in a way that sometimes is beyond what they ordinarily would behave. I've had people
Absolutely.
faint at the table. I've had to bring medics in. I've had 2 medical episodes that I've witnessed in front of me, and I've had somebody proposed at one of our photo op to his girlfriend.
Oh, I thought you meant to you.
Oh, no.
To his girlfriend.
Well, maybe. And what's the weirdest thing you ever autographed?
A boob.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. It says a lot about the characters I play that I'm also signing boobs.
That's a riot. I had a woman come up. I had a very, very confident woman with a prosthetic leg come up and throw her leg onto my desk like this. She was from the knee, and she dropped this prosthetic leg on, and I grabbed it, and I thought, I'll just sign it. And then I thought, let me just take a look. So I flipped her foot over like this, and on the other side it said LeVar Burton. He'd gotten there first.
He did. He'd gotten there first. My uncle had a wooden leg when we were kids. He was a longshoreman, had an accident on the boat. And he would always convince young boys, like my brother's age and his son's age, to karate chop his leg. He would bet them money that they couldn't make him, like, give him pain from karate chopping. He'd be like, I bet you I can handle a karate chop. And kids would, like, karate chop his leg.
If they give him his best shot.
They would. And then he'd lift it up and it's like this wooden leg. Crazy. The jokes we play on children. Yeah. When you booked Next Generation, do you remember that process? Do you remember thinking to yourself, like, this is going to change my life?
I remember both the process and the fact that I wasn't aware that it was going to change my life. For some reason, well, this is an old story, so I'll tell it quickly. I auditioned 7 times over 6 weeks.
I love that.
And that was a bear. And it was Billy Campbell, who I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Billy Campbell and I were the last 2 guys in the running, who's a spectacular actor.
Mm-hmm.
And probably it would have been a different Riker, but I feel very lucky that it worked out the way it did. And I didn't know because I hadn't watched the show. And when I was auditioning, Jeannie she tells me she had a Kirk poster on the wall of her bedroom as a child. So she knew about.
She wanted to marry him like I
Star
did.
Trek was. So this was the 80s. So I went to, Blockbuster and rented videos to try to get the gestalt of what all this excitement about the show was. And I got it, but I didn't understand that we were going to be, first of all, they didn't receive us as well as they did the original show because they didn't want a bald English captain with a French name, and they didn't want a Klingon on the bridge, and they didn't want a blind pilot, and they wanted Kirk and Spock and Bones. And it took us 2 or 3 seasons to win them over.
You mean the fan base or the studio? The fan base did, really? So I don't remember.
The studio was fine because the studio had made, because Gene Roddenberry hated the network so much, he insisted that it be sold independently. So they sold it to 237 separate channels in the United States.
Oh my God.
With half of the advertising attached. And it was the first television show that was made, first scripted drama that was made directly for syndication. So they only had to pay 40% of SAG minimum to all of us.
Huh.
So they had figured out the numbers in a way that they couldn't lose. Very, very cleverly. And that's 37 years ago. And I'm still doing conventions as you are. I mean, it's amazing. What a gift.
Because they only had to pay you 40% of.
Well, they paid 40% of SAG minimum on residuals, and they paid, they figured it out.
Of course they did. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Don't worry, it's only 90 seconds. Hey, everyone. We got a sponsor, and I am super excited. Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. I have fun all summer and I love the sun, but it is no secret that UV rays can take a toll on our skin. They leave it dry, tired, less vibrant. So if you want to hit the undo button on UV-induced aging, Hello, I do. Let's say hi to OneSkin. It's our secret weapon against the summer's toll on our skin. I haven't always been good to my skin, you guys. I have forgotten to wear sunscreen so much of my youth. And what I love about this product is that their scientists have shown that it actually can reverse the biological age of our skin by several years with their groundbreaking research. So I don't know about you, but this means more youthful looking skin, and that sounds amazing to me. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face, eye, and body routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code Sackhoff at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Sackhoff. Sackhoff. Don't forget that H. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please support our show and tell them we sent you. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. I had a very similar experience on Battlestar. I auditioned 6 or 7 times for Starbuck.
Really?
And yeah, just kept going back because they did not want me. They wanted someone older. And I think in their mind, they had this idea that I walked in heels. I did on my entire audition, including my test, in heels. I was like, I'm not changing who I think she is and who I am, because I was also egotistical. I was a kid, right? But I went in, and I think they wanted somebody a bit stereotypically rough around the edges, I think.
Right.
And just grittier, like believable that this is the top
Had they
pilot.
cast Eddie and Mary? And
They had. Yeah. But they were simultaneously casting all of us kids. And I say kids because we were all in our 20s.
Uh-huh.
And I think they were trying to figure out the ages of everyone, and I believe they were written, if memory serves me, much older. And by much older, I mean like 10 years, not too much. Right. And then it slowly, I think like Jamie and I think everyone was about 10 years older than I was. But anyway, but we didn't know that it was going to be as big of a success. We didn't know that we were all going to be family years later. Like, at what point did you and then you guys collectively realize that you had something really special?
I think it was around the 3rd or 4th season. Also, going forward, your show does have a family heart vibe, as our show does. Some shows, as we know, other parts of our franchise, both of our franchises, don't have the tightness that Battlestar and that Next Gen did. And that's just kismet. And it's a blessing, and that's often the best part of the conventions, because we see each other a lot. But if we haven't, and we're at a con and we can go out on Saturday night and have dinner and just bullshit for a few hours, it makes the whole con worthwhile. I
remember going to my first dinner with you guys because of Carl, and having that be like the best part of my relationship. Like, I was so excited that I was finally included in like the Star Trek dinners. Well, you were kind of
the best part of that relationship for us too.
But it was wonderful. I had a great 4 years. So what do you think it is? You say it's kismet. I think it is as well. But I try to take that lightning in a bottle feeling of family into other shows, because I want it. I want to have that type of an experience. And it's really hard to recreate, It
is. But there's part of the, I remember going over when I first started on Discovery, and it was great to be with all these, they reminded so much of our cast. And it was whatever that would be, 25 years later or whenever. What they really wanted to know is, what is this going to be like? I said, like Hatch said to you, your life is going to change.
Yeah.
And they, some rolled their eyes, some were excited, some didn't believe it. And all of their lives have changed, And it's a family that, for better or for worse, you will and are identified with. And it's, that's why this thing in Vegas was such a riot, because to move around the room and go from show to show. There were, 4 or 5 people from this show or people, and then there were also makeup people that you'd work with. Mike Westmore was there, and the
Oh, they have the makeup people as well.
And the Yakutas were there. I mean, it goes so deep. And there were guest stars of one episode. Ray Wise, who I hadn't seen in years, was there. It is. You don't get that on CSI.
No, you don't. And those shows have been on forever.
Yeah.
You
what
sort
about
of get
Longmire? Do you have Longmire conventions?
We're the same. No, we know conventions, but Longmire is family as well.
By the way, Jeannie and I love that show. It's one of our top 5, 10 favorite shows of all time.
Oh, thank you. It's the one show that if people were like, what show would you go back to in my entire career? If you knew you were going to have another 10 years on that show, I'd say that show. That show. For many reasons, it was so fun to shoot being out in New Mexico. It was the cast is so talented and we all became so close.
Yeah.
And the character is easier for me to play in the sense that she's based in reality. So I can show up to work and I don't have to go through hours of makeup and I don't have to do character study to figure out who I want this person to be. It lends itself perfectly to my style of acting, which is very just raw and here I go.
Yeah, I think that's what made you so appealing in the show too, is that we not only did you look great, but you felt like, oh yeah, that's what her job is. That's not her acting that job. That's what she does. That's who she works. And same with him though.
Yeah, Rob's phenomenal actor.
I mean, he put the shoes on or the boots on, and he was the guy. That was the best part about the show, was that the characters nobody was acting.
Rob was funny. I remember learning that they cast this.
Right?
He's Australian.
Yeah.
Like a thick Australian accent.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wait, they've hired an Australian for this quintessential American, macho guy that is so iconic in our culture. And he just is that person. He is every part of him is Americana. It's so crazy to watch him go into that character. I didn't
know he was until you told me, by the way.
That he's Australian?
I had watched the show religiously. Sort of like I watched For All Mankind, Ron's other show. Have you seen any of that?
It's so good.
I love it too.
I just worked with Chris Bauer.
Oh.
Do you know Chris Bauer? So Chris Bauer, you guys listening would know who Chris is. And if you saw him, phenomenal actor. We both just guest starred on Law & Order and had so much fun sitting next to each other for 2 days that I think he's my new best friend. But he's so talented and he's in For All Mankind. And Ron he just keeps hitting it out of the park.
I know. And he's back at his home base. And I'm a massive fan of his. And as we grow old, we have an annual dinner together, which I'm really happy we've been keeping. And
do you really?
Yeah.
Same place or different place, different time?
When he's in town and I'm in town, we make sure that we find time, because he also has a high school band background that I have, that he's working on a project that because
you play the trombone, right?
Yeah. And Brandon and Ron created First Contact, which was astounding. And the two of them they've parted ways, but they both continued to put out incredible content. I mean, Brandon runs, did you do Orville too? Or no, Trish?
I didn't. I did 24 for Brandon though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brandon was so good to me because I had just had my thyroid removed and I had a terrible audition for this. I was all over the place. It was awful. And on the way home, my general practitioner just happened to call me on the way home. And he's like, how you doing, kid? I just wanted to check in. Your levels are okay, but I know you're feeling bad. And you said your memory's all over the place. And I said, funny you bring this up. I just had this audition and it was the worst audition of my life other than for Castle. And I was like, I felt just, I was so disappointed because I wanted 24 so bad. And he goes, turn the car around and go back. And I was like, what? He said, just turn the car around and go back. Brannon's one of my best friends. I'm going to call him.
No kidding.
He called Brannon and they saw me a second time. They let me audition.
Is this Dr. Ron?
Yes. Ron Ben-Basat?
I had dinner with Dr. Ron and Jerry in Vegas. Oh, this world just got smaller and smaller.
I met Ron Ben-Basat. I went in, my ex, who I dated for like 10 years, and he's a wonderful person, was a patient of Ron's. And I went in, and my name is Catherine Sackhoff, obviously. And so I go in, I'm sitting there waiting, and to meet him for the first time, and he walks in the door and he goes, stop it. And he looks and he goes, Catherine Sackhoff is, you are Starbuck. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I have had my finger in your boyfriend's ass. And he goes, and your boss.
Oh, that's fantastic. That sounds just like him.
Doesn't it? He's just hysterical. And he's not for everyone.
No, but, neither are we.
No, I am not. But he was by far my favorite doctor I've ever had in my entire life. And it broke my heart when he retired. I know. It broke my heart. So you just saw Ron. I love that.
I just saw him on Saturday night. Ron, Michelle, Michael Dorn, Jerry's son, Marina. It was a blast.
Yeah. Because Ron and Jerry are like close as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really close.
Her career's on fire.
It is on fire. I love that. I play the trombone as well.
I did not know. Are you any good?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I was.
I lost my embouchure is shy. I keep it in the stand, thinking that I'll pick it up. And I play occasionally, but I get through about 8 or 10 minutes, and I'm literally done.
Out of gas. Out
of lip.
Really? See, I haven't picked up a trombone for like 30 years. I don't know. Well, 20 years, something like that. I picked the trombone because I couldn't read music. And it was the easiest instrument to copy first chair.
No kidding.
So I would play by ear and watching what the person and memorizing what they did, and never learned how to read music.
And it was also bass clef anyway. It was a whole different clef.
You're speaking languages I don't even understand. And I played for 5 years.
Played in a band or an orchestra and didn't know how to read music?
Yeah.
That's kind of Beethoven-esque, isn't it?
I don't know. My dad plays piano by ear. So, potentially it has something to do with that. I also just think it's dumb luck. And I also,
I love the idea of you as a trombone player, by the way.
I always like to do what's unexpected.
Yes, a good call.
A
very good choice. I was, the trombone was thrust upon me. I was at Jefferson Elementary School in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, in 4th grade, and they had to, the school distributes a bunch of band instruments. So there were a couple of clarinets and a couple of trombones, and Mrs. Hirschberg said, everybody stand up. We stood up, and she gave some flutes away and some trumpets, and she said, oh, Jonathan, you're tall. You get the trombone so you can go out and reach 6 minutes. That's how I got my trombone.
Really? God, I love that. I love that. I picked it because my dad played at some point.
It's a silly instrument.
It's so weird. Just the fact that you get to spit on the floor always.
Isn't that great? The little spit valve.
It's the weirdest thing that you're like blowing spit all over the place. Could you imagine like what it was like to be in now, like just how scared people are of like any germ whatsoever. If somebody blew a trombone toward me right now,
and dropped their spit by your foot,
be so disgusted as an adult. I would be like, oh my God, please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me.
Yeah. Please don't spit on me. I don't think that's asking so much.
Please don't spit on me. But so doing the research, are you a fish head or did you just play with fish?
Here's the fish story. My next door neighbor, when I used to live on Lookout Mountain, across the street from where Michael does his podcast. Did you do his podcast at his house?
Yes.
Yes. He insisted I come up there not knowing, I think, that I literally lived across the street in that same house on Lookout, in
Really?
this red house that they said Jimi Hendrix used to live in. My next door neighbor was named Paul Fox, may he rest in peace, who produced REM and Jacob Dylan and Bjork and Fish. And these guys used to rehearse in the front room of my house, or in front of my house in this garage area. And they were Trekkies. And they knew I played the trombone, or they thought I played the trombone. I had on Lookout Mountain, a mailbox that looked like a cow, had black and white spots, how those, like a large amount of bass, but this is the cow version. And it had been dented so many times because Lookout Mountain, as you probably remember, is a little shitty, tiny street.
Trisha lived on Lookout Mountain too.
Yeah, we'll get to her in a minute. So they invited me to play on this album, and they said, come to the studio on Saturday out in the valley. I was so excited. So I show up at the studio, and they put me into the booth, and I get my horn out, and the chart. I mean, you can't read music. I could read music, and it was 4 sharps, and all of this stuff was at the top, way beyond my range.
Right.
So I tried, and became really clear, really fast, that this was beyond my level of playing.
Right.
Charts. And they were really generous. They said, let's have lunch. And yada, yada, yada. So they hired the trombone player from Tower of Power. You remember Tower of Power?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who clearly could play the charts. And I thought it was all over. A few months later, Paul presents me with a gold album in a frame. It's called Hoist.
Yeah.
And on Hoist is a 29-second cut, which is my outtakes. It's called Riker's Mailbox. And these guys had put it on the album. And it was just, it was all these attempts
to
chart for Julius, which was the cut that was meant to play on. So I live in Maine. Fishman has a farm. John Fishman has a farm 10 minutes from here. His wife, Amber, ex-wife, opened up a store in another part of town here. So it's also equally my coolest credit.
Do you have so you have the gold album?
I have the gold album. It's on my office in LA.
Well, fish heads are I grew up in Oregon, where if you loved music, you were fans of, the Grateful Dead, Fish, Hendrix.
In that order.
That was what it was. Like and fish heads were something where I just my brain didn't understand how there are literally traveling groups of people, like gypsies almost, that follow Fish around wherever they go, and Fish played nonstop. So these people, this is what they did with their life.
It's exactly like the Deadhead used to be back in
the Yeah.
They just played Sphere in Vegas.
In Vegas?
Yes, they played into the Sphere.
It's so cool. You have a Trisha story you said on Lookout Mountain?
Well, Trisha was in this, I can't even remember the name of the show, and I adored her. We talked about this at the con the other day. She was playing a cat, as you would if you were Trisha Helfer.
Like in a voiceover, or?
No, in a scripted drama with Charlton Copley. And she was spectacular. And it was your connection. I guess you and I had either met because I said, well, I know Katee, and anyway, you two are tight, are you not?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. She's wonderful. So unexpected. I think that the Trisha that people, this is what I loved about when she came on the show. You see a completely different side of her. The Trisha that I know is completely different than what people think that she is.
Yeah.
And not to say that what they think she is bad in any way, but what makes her, one of my closest friends is that she is by far a better friend than I will ever be. She is by far a better person than I will ever be.
Isn't that a great, incredible quality?
Yeah.
That's the way Dorn is.
Really?
Yeah. He is such a loyal and honest and reliable friend. It's really it's a gift.
It takes a lot of work as you get older to maintain friendships.
Yeah, but it couldn't be more important.
Yeah, it really is. It's that community. What was it like? I want to talk about directing because you've directed like over 100 hours of television.
Isn't that weird?
It's so much, and you're so good at it. And you started back during Next Gen. Was it like, what was it about directing that intrigued you at that point?
It was as simple as I wanted to be more involved.
Mm.
I mean, it's classic. We wait around. Robert Mitchum or whoever's credited with I act for free. They pay me to wait. That whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can only take so many naps. Brent Spiner is one of the great nappers, but even you do a scene and we'll get back to you, and then 6, 7, 8 hours later. So I spent a lot of time in the set, and I also, as you know, I like people. I like people, and I love both sides of the camera, and I like the whole vibe of the day. And they were, I think, wisely reluctant to just give me stuff. So I shadowed for almost 2.5 years. I shadowed all the directors, and then the editors which is an area that I knew nothing about, who also wanted to direct, were generous enough. I spent 300 hours in the editing room with these people. Then I was able to go to post-production. I was able to go to the pre-production meetings and the visual effects meetings and the script breakdown and the casting. Rick Berman eventually let me in what we laughingly call Paramount University, because it was all there. We never left the lot. So I was given access to all the aspects of it to a really generous degree. And again, the great Jeannie Francis. I remember one day I was living in her house in Tarzana, and I didn't have to shoot. And I said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to go in today. And she said, that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for you to not show up or not show interest. So I got my car, got my ass to Paramount.
Yeah.
And eventually they relented and they gave me an episode. And it was, as you also know, it's the luck of the draw on television episodes. We did 26 a year. This happened to be a Data episode, and Brent Spiner is a genius.
Yeah.
It happened to be Renee Echevarria, who ran Castle, which you just mentioned, his first spec script. And I had, by this time, shadowed for 2.5 years. So I had the crew, the company was really behind me. So I had everything was in place for it to work, and the first one worked, and then it went on from there. Had the first one not gone well, or if the episode had really sucked, it would have probably been, no, that was a nice experiment. But it became something I've always been a better director than actor. And I think because I like both sides of it. I like the family of it. I love the responsibility of giving responsibility. I love having a great DP, great first aid.
Yeah.
When all those pieces are in place, your job, as you know, is easier. And it's, when it goes well, it's great. And the times when it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. It's a TV show, but it is, it's really been a blast for me.
Did you always have an understanding of camera, or was that something you had to learn?
I think I learned. I was a movie fan, and I learned from watching, and I always remind myself, especially on Star Trek, which can get so visual effect heavy, is the importance of the family and the importance of the heart. So I always listen to the beats, and I try to feel the beats, and you're always trying to let the camera help you instead of trying to show off with the camera.
Yeah. And I have this tremendous desire to direct.
Have you not?
I don't have time. No. And I don't have time. I know that I don't right now, because I know that what would get in my way is that exact same thing that Jeannie said to you. I would choose to, at this point in my life, be home with my kids instead.
Yeah.
And I know that they're waiting for that moment where you don't show up, because I would have to make that transition now would be a lot of work. And I do know that. And I'm not opposed to it. but I'm just not there yet.
Do you write?
No, I come up with all the ideas and then my husband writes the scripts because he's a
Maybe you'll
writer.
direct one of those.
Someday. Yeah. My husband, Robin, writes Hallmark Christmas movies. He writes other things as well, but those are the ones that he's had a number of those produced. And I would love to direct a Hallmark movie.
It's the best. I just did the Hallmark movie this year.
Did you?
Yeah, I did a Christmas movie called The Biltmore Christmas. That was such a ball.
It's so fun and it's so fast.
Yeah. 15 days.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I absolutely adore it. I love it. And I, like you said, give me a good DP and let me go. But I don't understand camera or anything. So I think that I
bet you do.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time because I know that you are that
Jeannie's very busy man.
Bean stew. And you don't want to miss out on your Wordle as well. But I want to know what I have to do to be in Star Trek because I need a hat trick.
Yeah,
and
you do.
I've never even auditioned for Star Trek. And I feel like maybe they think it's a little too on the nose.
Well, what about the new one? What about Starfleet Academy? Paul Giamatti's in it. It takes place 900 years into the future. It's they could probably use a guest instructor, not unlike Starbuck.
Ooh.
I'll pitch you.
Pitch me. Tell him I'm cheap.
I won't tell him that, but I'll tell him you're good.
Thank you so much for doing this. Please tell Jeannie that she's wonderful and my mother just adores her and has been watching her for years. So
thank you, my darling.
Bye.
I'll see you on the circuit.
I'll see you at the next convention.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, welcome to the HINDSIGHT. I'm still Katee Sackhoff, and I am joined by my producer, Jeph. Hi, Jeph.
Hello. I'm wearing my I'm wearing my Jonathan Frakes inspired shirt. He was wearing a nice, lovely vacation shirt, so I wore my vacation shirt.
I like it. I like it. He, God, he's handsome.
Yeah, I mean, he's William Riker. I mean, he's the most handsome man since Captain Kirk.
He is. You know, he is. I cannot say enough, like, just wonderful things about him. He is just, God, like, if I didn't love my dad so much, I love my dad, so I don't mean to like disrespect my father in any way, shape, or form, but like if you could pick a dad, he would be like the model of like, right? Of like, or at least he seems like he would be.
Yeah, he's Star Trek dad.
Yeah. But he's smart and he's funny and he's creative and he's honest. And I find him to be really fun. And I always love to see him because he's not only a good time, but he's a good person, you know? He is very protective of Star Trek and like the people on the show, and they truly are a family, you know, and they have been in this world their entire lives, what it seems like their entire lives. And it is really wonderful to see that they all love each other as much as they do. I love it.
Yeah, it's wild how, you know, we've talked about this a little bit before with Star Wars, you know, Star Wars being forever. Like, Star Trek is the original sci-fi franchise that is forever. Like, I don't know how much you're familiar with it, but like the fans literally brought it back to life after it was the original series was canceled. The fans, there was such an outcry that they more or less started the conventions as we know it today because they were just Star Trek fans that wanted to get together to talk about this show that was no longer on the air anymore. And then they got an animated show.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then they brought an animated show back because the fans were asking for it. And then then it wasn't until 87, 88 when Next Generation
And this
came
was
around.
back in the day where like they did legwork.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this was not like, oh, I put out a tweet and like hashtag save Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like, this was like, they did legwork and the
Yeah.
groundwork to bring this back. Like,
Yeah.
there was no social media. There was no internet.
No,
there was
people
no
were-
nothing. They like wrote hand letters
Yeah.
and
Hand
like,
letters.
like, you know, stormed the studio.
Yeah. Probably called the president of CBS. You know,
Didn't
that
even
was-
have an answering machine. They probably answered the phone.
that was one thing that Jonathan mentioned that I did not know and I thought was interesting is that Next Generation was a syndicated show. And, you know, it negatively affected them because they were only getting 40% of SAG minimum, you know, to this day.
You get bought out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You get bought out. And which leads me to when I was a kid, you know, I would watch Next Generation, but I never really understood what channel it was on. It wasn't associated with a channel. And now that makes sense to me why that was.
Yeah, I mean, like, I grew up in a house with a TV that had very limited channels.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we got it meant it was like one of the main ones, but like that didn't mean anything other than like, I think it was, I mean, we had like channel 2 and like channel 12, I think, or something like that.
I think it was CBS that it was on because Star Trek is a CBS property. So it probably aired first on CBS, but you could have just have easily watched it on Fox or on the WB or anything when it was playing. So,
you know, there are aspects of, I mean, there are so many aspects of this business that I hate. And one of that is when people don't get paid what they should be paid.
Right.
And I also, you know, I lived with a producer for 10 years. So I also sympathize with independent producers who make a lot of money. People think sometimes if a movie costs $20 million to make and it makes $30 million at the box office, it made its money back and everybody made money. That's not the case. There's so much money that has to be made before they actually turn a profit. So I also understand that like, you know, actors make residuals and actors before there's actually a profit. From what I understand, I believe that's the case. So things like that, where that might not be fair either, but you know, it is what it is. So, but in this situation, you know, you want actors who have been part of an iconic world for so long to have been paid what they were due, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting,
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I agree with you. I hope everybody else would. He mentions also that had a lot to do with why the convention circuit became such an important part of the Star Trek experience and by extension, the science fiction experience in general is because these situations set up, you know, people aren't making Hollywood big bucks money off of this stuff. So the conventions offer an opportunity to generate revenue and they're happy to have you there, which this is, I don't have to explain this to you, obviously, but it's like,
but for the person at home, it's the truth. It's the convention circuit allowed, especially actors in the age of streaming, it allowed actors to subsidize themselves where they lost their residuals, right, and be paid for a service. You know what I mean? As you should be. If you're working, you should be paid, you know, but it's always been part of the sci-fi world. And I didn't realize it was started by the Star Trek people, but that makes complete sense.
Makes me wonder if Gene Roddenberry hadn't made the decision that he made, because Jonathan said that was a decision that came from Gene Roddenberry because he did not want the show. He didn't like the network and he didn't want to give them complete ownership over it. So by forcing it to syndication, he gave everybody that pay cut. I wonder if that wouldn't have happened, would the convention circuit as we know it be what it is?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I know it's one of those funny things where I have actor friends who have never done sci-fi and they're like, God, if I could just get one.
Yeah.
Just one sci-fi thing. Not even like a lot, just like a recurring guest star or something on a sci-fi show. I could do conventions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they really do. They help to keep actors afloat,
Mhm.
you know? And if you really enjoy doing conventions like myself and like so many people do, it doesn't feel like work. It's just
Yeah.
part of it. It's fun. It's the socialization with the fans is something that I have always taken very seriously and am so grateful for. So yeah, I'm always like, yeah, go do something. Go find some sci-fi because it's awesome.
Yeah, I sort of have this, I don't know, if not a dream, I guess, but like my girlfriend is an actor and she is not a science fiction person at all. And she doesn't watch the Star Wars shows with me. She doesn't watch Star Trek with me, but I'm just waiting for the day when she gets cast in Star Wars or Star Trek and she has to come to me and be like, all right, explain Star Trek to me, please.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like you are going to be her wiki.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
exactly.
really will. I mean, but that's funny. I go to Robin a lot for stuff. Like, you know, I think that a lot of times, you know, we ran into this with our Ming-Na Wen interview. I am a huge fan of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up watching Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I have Star Wars books in my house. My daughter loves Star Wars, but I have a terrible memory. Like, I don't remember people's names I've met 10 times. Like, I'm really bad with that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to remember a line from a Star Wars movie that Darth Vader said. I'm just not going to. I wish I could. I wish I was that person, but I'm not. And so I always have to go to Robin because he has like a memory like a steel trap when it comes to stuff like that, especially if it's books or film or things like that. He really remembers that stuff. And so I have to go to him. And there's this constant joke that I'm always losing my Star Wars, like losing my Star Wars card, like just losing my card all the time. And I'm like, I know. And I know that like as soon as he says it, I'm like, oh, you're so right.
Yeah.
Vader did say that.
There's a lot to know, though. I mean, there's what, 6 movies? How many TV shows are there now? I mean, and then the comic books and the books and all the other, I mean, there's just no possible way for you to know everything.
He still does. He still does.
Yeah.
He's one of those people. We had to get out of a corn maze. And the trivia was Harry Potter.
Oh, well, you were fine.
You didn't even have to do the multiple choice, and he got it. Like we were fine. We were out of the corn maze.
That's.
I also love the fact that Jonathan's been married as long as he has to Jeannie. Like that is,
Yeah, I'm not a soap opera person, so I wasn't familiar with his wife, but I found that very interesting how long she's been on that show. Like, we want to say Star Wars is forever. General Hospital is even longer.
It really is. And it's like, I mean, that is, and it's not job security. You know, that is why I turned down a soap opera. When I first moved to California, my manager at the time said, if you can book one regular, like, primetime TV show in the next 3 years, then it was worth turning it down, because you don't know if your character's going to end up in a coma and be in a bed for an entire season. If that happens, you don't get paid. You're just in a bed.
But at least in a soap opera, if you get killed, that doesn't mean you're necessarily off the show. You can always come back.
Same as in Star Wars, but no one wants to admit that.
Yeah.
Hashtag Plo Koon.
You're still hoping Plo Koon's coming back, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's snotty comments all the time. Because I look at the comments from the YouTube, and every once in a while there's someone like, yeah, stupid bitch, you don't even know that Plo Koon died. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, so...
Don't even know Plo Koon died. I mean...
I have a question for you then. So, when you mentioned when you were a kid, you were real into Captain Kirk, William Shatner, right? Yeah. Thought you could marry him.
I was.
2 questions. 1, have you told Shatner that story?
I have not. Maybe I did. I think I might have, actually. I think I might have.
But
yeah, I think I actually might have.
Was the look on his face, get in line?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, so my other question then is...
Yeah.
Did you watch Next Generation when it came out, or...
The second it came out.
And what were your feelings on Riker?
I immediately fell in love with him.
Because here's my theory. Here's my theory on Riker. I think Gene Roddenberry wanted a captain that was more of an intellectual captain. So he had Picard, right? You have him. He's this intellectual guy, not necessarily a sex symbol. You know, I mean, he's
Okay.
not unattractive.
In some circles.
Yes,
Okay.
but he wasn't the guy. Kirk was the captain that was going down, banging the ladies, fighting everything. Picard was more of the philosopher, the rationalist, the thinking through. Until later on, they tried
British.
to amp him up or whatever. Yeah, French. Picard is French. Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, but he didn't have a French accent.
Well, it's the 24th century. That's all gone now.
Okay. True. Okay.
I think they wrote Riker to be sort of that version of, or that show's version of Kirk, which is why I think they named him William Riker, because of William Shatner. That's my theory, completely based on nothing, just my theory.
So basically what you're saying they did is that, like, you know that thing where you're dating two people.
No.
And like you're like, God, if I could just combine these two people, I would have the perfect man. Okay. You know, like that moment where you're like, there's this and this and like this and this, like when you're doing your pros and cons list and you're like, I can't make up my mind. And then like, it's like one person. So basically what they did, which was potentially Kirk, I guess. Mm-hmm. So what they did for Next Gen was they just cut him down the middle, and they were like, we're going to make one character super intelligent and like, you know, it's a British guy, French guy. And then the other guy is going to be like the ladies' man.
Yeah.
That guy, like the identifiable guy, the relatable guy that all the girls are like, whoo, that guy.
He's the guy
they made. So there's something for everyone in Next Gen is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I think they gave you a little bit of both, and you know, it seemed to have worked out.
They did. They created a really nice salad. To go back to Eddie Olmos's episode.
Yeah,
it's a really nice salad. The Next Gen salad.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were on a Fox Family show and a Richard Dreyfuss show, and I was just curious about those because I don't know a lot about them, and I don't know if we've talked about them on the show, or if you have talked about it in the past. I'm not privy to it.
So the first like series regular job I ever got was a pilot that didn't get picked up. And then the next one I got was for Fox Family, playing like a 14-year-old when I was 18. I turned 19 while we were filming, called The Fearing Mind. And it was about, I played the daughter of a guy named Bill Fearing. And he was a horror writer. And so half of the 1 hour episode was the horror show brought to life. Like whatever he was writing came to life. And then the other half was his family life and how it sort of influenced his writing. And I played his, 14-year-old daughter who was, I don't really even remember, just like headstrong and like whatever. That was that job that got canceled. And then right after that, I booked The Education of Max Bickford, which was, I was 20 when I booked that. Halloween Resurrection came in between those two. But I was 20 when I booked the pilot for Max Bickford, and that was playing Richard Dreyfuss's daughter on this show that, it was crazy show. It was Richard Dreyfuss, Marcia Gay Harden, Eli Wallach, Peter O'Toole, Ann Johnston. It was like Isaac Hayes. I got to record an album with Dawn Was from Was Not Was.
Wow.
And sing with Isaac Hayes. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. That show did not go past season 1. It was I don't know if there was a lot that happened. We were up against Monday Night Football a lot of the times, and 9/11 happened, and it really sort of changed the landscape in New York for a while, and the show just didn't make it through that time, which was fine. I did not want to live in New York anymore after that experience. I just sort of wanted to get out of there for a while.
That's why I was confused. You called it the Richard Dreyfuss show, but it was The Education of Max Bickford was the show, and it looks like
yeah. You mean like I called it like it was called the Richard Dreyfuss show?
Yeah, maybe you said a Richard Dreyfuss show, and I misheard it as the Richard
Yeah.
Dreyfuss show. Also,
Possibly.
you got some great pink hair.
I had pink hair.
Very cool.
I had pink hair. I did. Yeah. I remember when I booked that, and I was so excited because I was going to get to sing, and they were going to dub me. And I was like, wait, what? Because they never asked me during the audition process if I could sing. I don't even know why.
Yeah.
They just didn't. And so I was like, no, I can sing. Like, at least well enough to do this kind of like this very, she wasn't supposed to be like a professional singer. She was supposed to have like a garage band in high school. I was like, I can do that. And then they had me record and work with Dawn for like a second and see if I could do it. And he was like, she can do it. So it was pretty awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Right around, was it around this time too that you auditioned for Roswell?
I would imagine it was. I would imagine it was around that whole time because it was when was Roswell? When did that film?
Let's see.
Because Katee Heigl, I think, is like a year older than I am.
99 was when the show came out. So
98. So no, I auditioned for Roswell during The Fearing Mind. So it was probably one of the first things I auditioned for when I moved to California. It was interesting that he was so honest about the professionalism on that show. I was like, wow.
People doing blow. Is that, did that show actually shoot in New Mexico, or was it all in LA?
Probably shot in LA.
Or was it like 90% of it shot in LA and then they'd go do like a couple of weeks of location shooting?
Possibly something like that. Do you remember the movie that Katee Heigl did called My Father the Hero?
No, I do not.
Was it with Gerard Depardieu?
I don't.
It was a movie. I wanted to be her so bad. Let's see. Katee Heigl.
Yeah, I see it here. My Father the Hero, 1994.
Katherine Heigl. There she is. Stand-ins, The Tempest, Bride of Chucky, Prince Valiant. My Father the Hero. There it is. Gerard Depardieu. You guys, I fell in love with Katee Heigl and wanted to literally be her. Wanted to be her. In 1994, I was 14 years old and she became like my hero. And then I got to meet her and drink with her and she was so wonderful and I really like her.
Still your hero?
She did a movie for my ex.
Oh.
Scott. Yeah. So I got to hang out with her for a bit when she did that movie and I loved her. I
have a quick fact check that our coordinator Natalie brought up. We in the Bear episode we mentioned that our age difference would have put us in high school together, but she pointed out that you actually would have graduated in the spring of 98 and I started in the fall of 98, so we'd have just missed each other.
Jeph, I was fucking right.
Yeah, you were right.
I love it. I love it.
Right.
I told Robin all about the snafu of the baby toddler foot in my mouth. And he was dying laughing. He was like, Katee.
Yeah. So who's old now, Katee?
Me.
Yeah.
But not really.
No,
I mean
really.
me, but not really.
So I looked up, because I was interested. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a Star Trek fan, so I'm going a little nerdy on this one.
I love how big of a dork you are. It keeps me honest, Jeph.
There we go. Just when you apologize for calling me old, you didn't call me a dork.
But I feel like I say like that with like a lot of sincerity.
Sure. On this podcast, it's a term of endearment.
Thank you.
So the first episode he directed of Star Trek was an episode called The Offspring, which was the episode where Data builds himself his own daughter named Lal. Do you remember this episode?
I remember this episode.
It's a pretty seminal episode in the canon of Star Trek, and it's pretty cool that he was involved in that one.
I would love to be directed by him. I feel like he's a really, really good director. Just because of his temperament and the way that I I just like him. God, I would love to be directed by him. I think
Well,
it'd be
he's
fun.
gonna put in a word for you to get you on Star Trek Academy or Starfleet Academy. And the last thing he said, the quote of the episode that I really liked was he said he'll put in a word for you. You said, tell him I'm cheap. And he said, I won't tell them that. I'll tell them you're good, which was very sweet.
It was very sweet. It was very sweet. It's this really funny thing that's happening lately that the industry has changed so much, you know, and like there's this thing where somebody called the other day and they were like, you know, we're gonna put your name in for this show that we have with Paramount, and like we think you're really right for it, but we don't think we can afford you. And I was like, this is the problem. Like, this is the problem.
Yeah.
This is what happens in our industry, is that you do something like Mandalorian, and then like all of a sudden people have this idea of what you will do or what you cost in some weird, but none of it's accurate.
Right.
And so you end up in this sort of like no man's land where you don't work for a long time because people just think that you are not attainable. And it's a very weird space to exist in because you end up having to tell people you're really cheap.
Yeah,
you don't know.
relatively cheap. Like, you're not going to do it for like a bag of chips and a free lunch, you know, like.
No, but like 44-year-old woman cheap.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in my prime anymore. I'm just
No, you're graduating into different types of roles. It doesn't mean you're better or worse.
Yeah.
It's just a different role.
just more talented than I used to be. All right, let's look at some YouTube comments. Donna O'Neill, F6E, says, why isn't Robert listed as the cast of Longmire? What?
So this is, if you Google Longmire cast, Robert Taylor is not in the list. You are listed as the first one. It's just a strange thing that I think people are asking about. I don't know who we talked to.
Like if you actually Google it?
Yeah, Google.
Or if you look at it on IMDb?
IMDb is fine, but if you Google, you know how Google will show you like all the cast of a show? If you Google Longmire cast, Robert is not there.
Google.com. Google.
That's a funny word,
Cast
isn't it?
of Longmire. Google. Oh my God. Show more.
Yeah, he's not there.
What the fuck? That's so weird.
Like, do you think that's a mistake, or do you think that's something he's done to, like, some people try to hide their presence?
No, it's like legitimately a mistake.
It's a pretty egregious mistake.
Rob loves being associated with Longmire. I mean, he's got a new show coming out too on Netflix, supposedly.
Oh, nice.
Like a Western, like a Australia's answer to Yellowstone.
I have the dumbest joke. You ready for it?
Go for it.
Is it called Longmire? Told you it was stupid.
But it's so stupid. It's like funny. It's so stupid. Oh, Jeph. Oh, I love it. All right. At Brother Cousins, Toy Review says, OMG, I have the hardest time spelling restaurant. LOL. Love the show, Katee. Keep up the great work. Restaurant's like hard for me.
Do you remember this conversation we had about words? Okay. Just making sure.
Like, I mean, would you say restaurant's a tough one?
Restaurant is my word. It's the hardest one I can ever spell. And somebody who listened to that episode, I can't remember which, I think that might have been on, it wasn't on Bear, but it was on, who came out before Bear? Was it Paul? I think Paul
maybe.
Yeah, I think that's where we talked about it. It was on Paul. And somebody who was listening to it that works with me just goes, it's just rest, AU, rant. And I'm like,
I mean,
easy for you to say.
I'm glad you came up with that like highly complicated thing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them. Congratulations is so hard for me that like if somebody asks me to write congratulations at a convention after I've signed like 500 autographs, after I'm exhausted, I just write congrats.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's not going to happen. I have misspelled things on people's like prized possessions. So sometimes I'm just like, guys, can you tell me please how to spell that? Like my brain is so fried.
Write it out for me first and then I will copy it.
Write it out for me. You write it out for me. All right, let's get into the mail sack.
Mail sack. We're going to the mail sack. Mail sack. Why are we calling it mail sack?
Okay. Steve says, I'm a Marine Corps veteran of 16 years and have seen service in 3 of our wars. Thank you for your service, by the way. Just before listening to this podcast, I started seeking therapy for PTSD issues associated with those wars and veteran suicide. I had no idea that you and several guests on your show would discuss mental health at great length. It has helped me greatly in my own mental health journey. Hearing others speak so openly about a topic that has been kept under the rug, especially in the military veteran community, has been like a breath of fresh air for me. I can only hope that other listeners feel the same way. I'm truly thankful that you and your guests have been so open and honest about it. From my heart, thank you. That is honestly like one of the best comments we could ever get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really nice.
It's really nice, but it also, I want to applaud Steve actually for like talking about his mental health. I think that we've learned so much about that and just like being open and honest and sharing and just like taking the power away from your thoughts. And it is really, really important.
Yeah. Definitely.
So we'll continue to do it. Shit, we'll talk about it. I literally said the other day to my husband, I finally understand why people go to the grocery store for milk and never come home.
And this is the power of talking about it. Instead of you actually going and doing that, you're like, let's have a conversation right now. And then he's like, what's going on?
Get it.
Yeah.
Like, my life is not my own anymore.
Yeah.
I said to my 4-month-old child today, well, this having kids thing is really fucking fun. 4-month-old.
Yeah, I get it.
I have no time.
Yeah.
I have no time. I just like, I struggle with that, but I also like try to take the power away and make jokes about it. You know what I mean? Like I said to my husband, I constantly say to my husband's the only person I talk to. When I talk shit to my 4-month-old, I said, the only way I'm going to be able to work out is if I actually take our toddler down to the gym with me and put her in front of a screen and allow her that this is the only time that she gets bluey. Or games on the iPad, because it used to be the hospital, right? And she's not going to the hospital anymore. Knock on some fucking wood. She's not going to the hospital anymore. So when's she going to get her screen time now? When mommy's in the gym.
There you go.
Because I've not worked out for over a year. Over a year.
That's what we call taking care of your mental health.
There you go. Steve, you're amazing. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Steve.
Well-Armed Org says, I noticed that Joe Straczynski, is that how you say that?
You nailed it. I don't know.
Joe Straczynski wrote the script for the Watchmen. Yes, it is how you say that. Wrote the script for the Watchmen series you've done. I have greatly enjoyed his work in the past. In many ways, his Babylon 5 series laid the groundwork for BSG 2003. They were doing all their effects on computers before it was common on TV. If you have interest, get his audiobook on Becoming Superman. It is very interesting when you listen to the active decisions he made in his life about what kind of person he was going to be, not unlike Paul saying he actively decided he wasn't going to be bitter. Lastly, based on your own expression, did you realize you're calling us cunts every week? Yes. Yes, I did. I absolutely 100%.
Such a hard transition there.
It's a hard transition. I didn't realize that Joe wrote a book about that. That's really interesting. Do you do this, Jeph, where you say or have said in your life, like, I am going to be this person?
I don't know if I know what that means.
So like, I made a conscious decision after season like 1 of Longmire to change my behavior because I did not like the person I was. I was a little miserable to be around. I was, just not very, I was just like, I wasn't mean. I was just like very lull. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I made an active decision to be a different person, to act as if, and then started meditating, and that changed who I was as a person, and I became very different. But I did that. Like, I chose to do that. I chose to be a different person. Have you done that?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I was younger and coming out of my sheltered upbringing, I made an active decision to reevaluate basically everything I believed about the world and change myself and relearn a lot of things in it. And then I did a bunch of psychedelics and a bunch of drugs, and changed my brain.
Good for you.
So,
can you make a decision to have more energy on the podcast? Just kidding.
I don't know what you're talking
Just doing
about.
you shit now.
This is the most energy that I'm capable of producing. You're seeing me at my most excited right now.
It's actually quite good. I'm like really impressed though. Like from when you first started to now, I feel like people are starting to get to know you a little bit better.
Well, they know, some of them know how to spell my name now.
They know more about you than they did before. My brother-in-law, who's probably listening to this podcast and listens to all the podcasts, was like, I'm really starting to dig your Jeph, the producer. He's really opening up.
This is how I take care of my mental health. Every Tuesday I sit here and chat with you, Katee, and that is my my mental health. Speaking of,
your poor girlfriend is probably like, spend more time with me, less with Katee. You're always with me and your 8 million other podcasts.
She's very happy that I have someone to talk about Star Wars and Star Trek with.
Imagine.
Yeah.
You can imagine.
Yeah.
This last one, I love this phrase. Daniel says, "See you next Tuesday." I love this phrase. It makes me smile every time you say it. I don't know if it's only a thing in the UK, but the phrase "see you next Tuesday" is used to replace a particular swear word, "see you next Tuesday." I guess that means I'm just a big kid. You guys, I'm going to offend so many people right now. Carol, I'm sorry if you're still listening. In-laws, I'm so sorry if you're still listening. I know you made it a long way. Cunt is one of my favorite words. I'm not British, therefore I cannot say it. I'm not allowed to say it. I think it's funny. It's like fuck. It's a good word,
but almost more harsh than fuck. It feels like it cuts a little deeper.
Yeah, but like also like, all right, you're right, cunt. Like it can also be said like funny.
Yeah,
like,
it could be funny, but if you're using it in anger at someone, it feels a lot worse than.
Oh yeah, because there's like spit that comes out when you say it.
Yeah, it's
especially
like,
if you're British.
it starts in the back of your throat,
It really does.
Versus,
it really does. It's but if you're like taking the piss out of a friend and you call him a cunt, it's like, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I
mean, I think it's funny.
I don't feel like I can say it. Like, I just don't feel like it's a word I'm allowed to say.
I don't feel like I don't feel like Americans are allowed to say it. We're not allowed to say it at all. It's not. It's like one of those words that like only Brits can say this. Maybe some Kiwis and Australians, right?
I don't know.
No, like if an American called me a cunt, I'd be like,
yeah.
Hold my baby.
Because they're likely not saying it in a fun, jovial way.
No, but if a British person called me a cunt, I'd be like, all right, you sack of nuts, whatever.
Sack of nuts. I love the idea that you're trying to like speak like you know how to. They're like, yeah, you cunt, what you doing? And you're like, hey, you sack of nuts. They're like, what the fuck?
It's like, oh, that poor American woman.
Yeah.
She's trained so hard.
Yeah.
She's trained so hard. Yeah. I mean, That's you. Yeah, you bloody child.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just getting sadder. It's just getting sadder. It's just getting sadder, Jeph.
Where can people email us?
You guys, we are at the sackoffshow@gmail.com. All of those fun comments, those are from the Sackhoff Show at Gmail. So we read all those emails. Thank you so much. People send us some funny stuff too, which we love. The Sackhoff Show is turned into I wanted to show you this, Jeph, from one of the conventions that I did. I probably should have texted it to you. That would have probably made more sense. But I'm going to pull it up on my phone just to annoy the shit out of people. This is really funny. Wait, where is it?
Is
That's
so
bitch
good.
pudding holding
so
a mail
good.
sack.
She would. Except I feel like if it was butch pudding, it would be a literal scrotum.
It would be a scrotum.
Yeah.
It would be a scrotum. Yeah. I just loved that. I thought it was wonderful.
That's great.
And again, you guys, I'm going to tell you where I'm going to be the 18th and 19th of October, which I think has already happened.
Yeah.
I'm in Cincinnati. October 25th, I am in Chicago. The 26th and 27th, I'm in Texas, in San Antonio. I am in Rhode Island, November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and I am in Nashville, hopefully with Jeph. Nashville, the 8th, 9th, and 10th of November, and I think we're doing a live show there.
Woo! Yay!
Yeah. And then I'm in Germany.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I gotta pee really bad.
I think
I've been
we're
chugging
done.
water. All right. You guys, thank you as always for joining us. There's not much more to say other than see you next Tuesday, you bloody cunts. And that's what's up.